happy Saturday. And welcome to the third episode of Jay's Turning Secrets Take Care of You, the podcast. I am your host, Janelle, and I have with me, drum roll,
Your other
please.
host, your other host, Tracy. Good morning, or should I say good afternoon?
Good
And
afternoon,
it
Tracy. How are
is,
you?
yeah, I'm good. I'm really good. And just kind of thinking about, it is Memorial Day weekend. So definitely want to give a shout out, to all that served. My grandfather served. My daughter actually was in National Guard as well. So just want to give a shout out and also want to give a shout out to the Tuskegee Airmen for their service, which is one of the reasons why I am wearing my Tuskegee t-shirt. So yeah, just want to give a shout out to them because they were actually the first African American military pilots in the U.S. That flew hundreds of missions. And so their success and courage during this time of segregation played a really significant and key role. So and basically in desegregating the military. So yeah, I'm sorry, I just got on a little rant, but I wanted to really just kind of get that out today before we get started. So yes, shout out to all our military personnel.
Thank you so much for doing that. Thank you so much for doing that. We really, really appreciate it. And happy Memorial Day to you and to all of those who have served. I reiterate all the words that you just spoke. So thank you for keeping us on our toes and aware of those who have gone on, our veterans who are still struggling even today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And another little quick fact about Memorial Day and just the root of it, it started basically from the Civil War and recognizing the fallen soldiers of that particular war. And so now we've actually extended it out to all fallen soldiers. So no matter when or what period you served, for anyone who's a fallen soldier, we recognize. So just wanted to put that little bit out there as well.
And if you hear any loud noise or background noise over here,
Mm.
it is Memorial Day weekend. There's like a parade going on down the street. So
Oh,
I'm going to
okay,
try to not let
awesome.
my attention deficit uh,
Go
distract
that
me
way.
from.
Right.
Right. So, like, I may
Absolutely.
even turn. I may even turn this way a little bit
Yes,
so that I can multitask as I multitask as we get this show on the road. So,
absolutely. Absolutely.
are we ready to get this party started? That's the question.
So what do we got going on today, Janelle?
All right,
What is
so
happening?
today we are going to begin with our greeting, and the greeting is what you're watching. Okay, so greet the audience and share what it is you are watching. That's our greeting today.
Okay. All right. Can you start us off then? What are you watching?
All right, so I started watching. Well, last week I told you I was watching the Diddy trial. Well, watching as in watching the news. So of course I've been still keeping up with that, but I had to lighten the load a little bit, and so I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching Sneaky Links, Sneaky Links on Netflix,
Okay.
and it has started out pretty intense. I had to get to know the characters. I think there are like five different couples. So it has
Okay.
taken me a minute to get to know them, but it has been quite entertaining. Now, look, when I finish watching Sneaky Links, I'm going to watch She the People, Tyler
See
Perry's.
the people.
Yeah, She the
Okay.
People new show on Netflix. So hopefully it'll be worth the watch as well. I started watching Forever Judy Bloom because I read her book when we were in school before it was banned, and I
Right.
haven't been able to finish it. It
Okay.
didn't keep my attention. But
So
Sneaky
which
Links is
one
what I'm
was
watching
this?
right now.
Which
Which
one
one
of
was
Judy Blume's did not keep your attention?
Forever?
Which Oh, Forever. Okay. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those were some good
What you
books back
watching?
then. I mean,
Oh yeah,
those were some good books,
that
yeah,
was a
back
different
then. So
time.
they were looking at, yeah, different times, because I know I read quite a few of her books and were definitely engaged completely. You know what? Now,
Mm-hmm.
this is such an interesting time for me because you're asking, what am I watching? And I have decided not to watch any. So, any news that I get is a little bit on social media, but I've decided just kind of like, again, that space of peace. And so I haven't been watching any series. Maybe in a couple of months I'll be ready to pick it up, but I'm actually proud of myself because, as my mother would say, I'm a TV holic. Like, I like TV, I like shows, I like movies. So this is really a good period of me just to be in peace and silence. And so I choose to do other things instead of watching, some of the shows. So when I'm ready to pick it back up again, then that is exactly
Hmm.
what, I will do. But as of right now, I'm good. So yeah, and this has been about
So
30
what?
days.
30 days?
Yes.
Is this something you think you'll continue?
I will continue it for a while, because it does bring a certain a kind of different piece. Because before I would look forward to, all right, gotta watch the Real Housewives of Atlanta, or I've got to watch this, or I've got to watch that, and you find yourself centering around these shows, right? And now I don't have to do that. I can focus on other stuff, whether it's just a peaceful time to think or to read or to enjoy nature. So yeah, for right now, I'm loving not feeling like, oh my gosh. And it's different now because we can watch things whenever we want. Whereas growing up, when 8 o'clock came, you had to sit there in front of the TV and watch
You,
the show. Right. You remember
absolutely.
that?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
remember that? And I mean, if
And
you
you had
missed
to
it,
put up with the commercials too.
that's right. And if you missed it, well, you missed it until they decided to run reruns, right? But so yeah, so I'm just in a place where it's not as of importance to me to necessarily watch the shows. So yeah, that's where I am.
There was a show that I used to watch on. It was Love
Mhm.
and Marriage Huntsville, and
Yeah,
they canceled the show
yes.
because you know the show had gotten very toxic. In my opinion, they needed to cancel it. But I did enjoy the entertainment, so I get needing some space. I can understand needing some space.
Now, it is funny that you bring that particular show up because somewhere along the lineage, the characters, or should I say, or um on there, the Holtz, we are related to them. That is my family's name, Holt, on my
Oh, the
mom's side.
holes.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Okay.
there is some lineage there. Not sure exactly, but I'm sure a distance cousin, someone was telling me in the family. So yeah, but very, very interesting. Very
It
interesting
is.
show. I did catch a couple of seasons of that.
Yeah. Well, we leave nothing off the table, and so what is it that we're going to talk about today? What are you looking forward to? And let me think. It is. What are you looking forward to over the next month? Question of the
I
day. We have a
The question of
question
the
of
yeah.
the day.
The question of the day. Yes. So, of course, one of the things that I am looking forward to is summer. When I think about summer
Ooh.
and definitely being a kid, you always associated it with it being a fun time. So, I'm definitely looking forward to summer. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to be. There's a couple things that I probably would want to do, and I know we talked about this on the last show, and I don't know if we'll get to do it, but the skydiving, I don't know if it's better to do it or in the fall or
When
in
is the
the
best time to
winter,
do a
but
skydiving? You have to look and do some research and let us
yeah,
know. It's your
we have to
homework.
do some research.
That's your homework.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So in the next month or so, I'm definitely looking, again, towards summer because I feel like summer is a fun time. I also have an aunt who is celebrating her 70th birthday in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to go and, celebrate with her. That's, such a milestone. Many people don't make it to 70. And I'm just looking forward to what God has in store for me. We don't always know, but He always knows. So I'm just looking forward
Amen.
to being,
Amen.
amen, right? In that space to receive it,
Mhm.
to be in that space of peace, to be in that space of silence so that I can hear it. And yeah, so that's what I'm looking forward to in the next month or so. What about you, Janelle? What is it that you are
Okay,
looking forward to?
I am going to take your answer. And I am going
Okay.
to detail it because I am looking forward to the summertime.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to the rest and the time to reset. Um, I'm looking forward to what's ahead, knowing who guides my path. And so that's what I'm the same answer
Yeah.
as you.
Yes.
Looking forward to the summertime. A new season, Tracy. I'm
It's,
looking
it's,
forward to
it's
a new
actually
season.
a new season. You are right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hmm.
All right, segment two. Here we go. What you're gonna do when you get to segment two. So, as we get into this new season, I want to take a moment, real quick. If you
Okay.
are dealing
Uh,
with someone who goes from 0 to 100, real quick, how do
okay.
you deal? Let's talk about all of the degrees of emotions and
Okay. If I
how do
could
you
just
deal with
interject for just a second, because we love this wonderful technology, but
it.
I'm pretty sure I missed the first part of that because it actually was buffering. So,
Okay, so
yeah,
let's run that back. You
let's
want me to run it
run
back?
that back. Right,
Okay, let's
let's
run
run
it back
that back. So
again.
you were saying, yeah, you were saying that as we're going into a new season, we're going to talk about emotions. All right, take it from there.
All right, so as we go into a new season, we like to leave nothing off the table, especially because we are here for just a short time. And so I want to talk about degrees of emotions as we go into this new season. How do you deal with people who go from 0 to 100 real quick? But then also, how do you, if you are that person, how do you deal with going from 0 to 100 real quick? Because I have some thoughts about how we deal with our emotions. And they
Hmm.
can be, emotions can be sparked. And so I think it's important that we take a moment to talk about the degrees of emotions and how we deal with them. Because I'm not saying it's not good to have emotions, but we need to
Hmm.
have a discussion about what we do with those emotions.
Agreed, agreed. And
All
I,
right,
and I
so
think,
I'm gonna,
yeah, go ahead. You want to
take the
start
floor.
first?
No, no, no. I was gonna say, go ahead, take the floor, Tracy.
Oh, yeah. So, degrees of emotions. I think it starts very early on and how we learn to deal with our emotions. And it's part of probably a little bit of parenting and as well as our teachers, our coaches, and our mentors. And here's why. There was a little girl on social media who was extremely upset. She may have been maybe about 4, maybe 5 years old. And she was trying to explain to her mom what had happened, I guess, between her and her brother. Okay. And the little girl was, she was like, trying to catch her breath and, and she was saying, mama this and mama that. And the mom was like, okay, I'm going to get the flip flop. Okay. So this obviously this
Uh-oh.
went viral. Okay.
Mhm.
And the little girl is like, she's saying, and my brother this, and she's like, mom, but mama. And so you guys have to excuse me, I'm still getting over my cold here. But so my comment to this little girl, or not to her specifically, but to the scenario was, I said, this baby right here needs to be comforted first, right? And get her emotions basically in check. And so
Mhm.
there were a lot of people
Mhm.
that agreed with me, but then there were a lot of people that disagreed because they're like, oh, she needs to flip flop. No one is saying that the child doesn't need to be disciplined, but when those motions early on are so out of control, we need to teach our kids how to get those emotions in check and to be able to use their words, right, to explain what it is that's right, what it is that they're feeling, how they're feeling, and they need to be able to express that in a trusting environment. And then we can get to, if there's, discipline, which I obviously said, in my comment, I don't agree with the flip flop. So someone said, they were like, oh, you're about that soft parenting. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't come from a generation of soft parenting. But what I recognize is this child is in distress. Be that child right or wrong, the child was in distress and needed to be calmed down and spoken to in a manner where she, again, felt safe and could get these emotions out the correct way and teaching them. So, again, I think it just kind of starts early on. And so, with that scenario, let's just say that child is not taught how to deal with emotions and expressing herself, that is going to continue to carry on into her adult life. And so that's what I mean about it needs to start early, and me being in, the field that I'm doing right now, which is dealing with a lot of young children, 3-year-olds who haven't begun to be able to express fully their emotions, is having to take that time and say, listen, tell Miss Tracy what it is that's happening. Use your words and express yourself. And even sometimes telling them, you don't have to cry about it. It's not anything to necessarily cry about, but let me know what's going on. So, just a little bit of, what I've kind of experienced recently in terms of emotions. And I feel like, again, if it's not something that is seen early on, that is dealt with early on, it definitely will carry over into adulthood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. You share so many nuggets that I need to hold them for the closing.
Okay.
Like when that's one of those enough said situations right there. Enough said.
Yeah.
Um, what you shared reminded me of a situation that happened this week. And I guess we have children on our hearts this week as we move
Mm,
into this new season. There
right.
was a young girl at school who was visibly upset and crying. And what helped her in that moment was a hug. There's something about when your emotions are really, really high. If you can make contact with someone and embrace
Hmm.
a hug, it sets off a euphoria. And
Yes.
it's an automatic calmer. When my kids were younger, when they would
Yes.
get into arguments, I would get this big shirt and I would tell them, okay, either you figure it out or you're going to have to hug it out. And I put them both in that shirt. And I only had to use
Mm,
that shirt maybe twice,
okay.
because, you know, there's oh, I got to hug up with her because of this.
Right. Right.
you know,
Right.
but
Let me figure
that
it out.
contact, yeah, that
Right.
contact and that touch when emotions are high is important. It may not be the overall soother for the situation, but
Hmm.
it does echo what you said, where we got to calm them down first. And
Hmm.
even as adults, if things don't quite go our way or if someone pulls out in front of us, our emotions can spark real fast. And, sometimes depending on how you handle the emotion, that
Hmm.
situation can end up good or that situation can end up bad. So
It's
there's
true.
nothing wrong with being upset because someone pulled out in front of you. But I do think that it's important to recognize why you are upset and don't don't categorize and identify the behavior with the person. Um,
Mm,
If someone pulls out in front of you, that's a behavior. It's not the person. Um, the person could be in a rush, in a medical emergency. It's not the
Very
person that
true.
offends you, it's the behavior. And if you can identify,
Hmm.
okay, it's the behavior that's upsetting me, I'm not going to take it out on that person. So
Very
I
true.
feel like if we can teach others and also be aware ourselves that sometimes our emotions can get the best of us, but
Hmm.
we're able to reel it back. If we're able to have that self-control, it will do us more good in the long run than not exercising the self-control over those emotions. Because let's be real, people can really piss us off sometimes.
They can. They
And
can.
many times it can go left very easily. And many times left can end with consequences that we never ever anticipated or even had time to think about because our emotions were so high.
And I got one that's very relevant at this very moment. And I don't know a lot about it, but the Chris Brown situation. Okay. So, he is
Mm-hmm.
apparently, allegedly, locked up, right, in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Mm-hmm.
stems from a situation where I don't know if he threw something at someone, but basically emotions got out of control. And so here we are, as the story goes, 2 years later, right?
That is very
And
true. Yeah.
right. And so they have decided to, they've decided to pull him in. And so you have to say, why would Chris Brown ever put himself in this position? He's
Mm-hmm.
an entertainer, he makes all of this money. There's nothing in the world that should get him to the point that he would risk potentially losing it all, right?
Right.
But
Right.
yet and still, when we do not, um, when we do not fully have control of our emotions, it can lead to consequences bigger than we ever imagined. So I think he's a good,
Very
relevant
true.
example right now of just whatever that situation was. There's people in place with him. Let them handle it. You need to go on about your business, not be involved. Get those emotions in check. Has there ever been a time
Totally.
that you have felt like your emotions were out, or a situation where your emotions were maybe all over the place, or just you just didn't exhibit the best behavior because of your emotions?
Yes. Um, I have. I have.
Mm.
Yes, and thank God I have grown.
Right.
But there are some things that I did not know. There were some places that I should not have gone. And my emotions, yes, can sometimes get the best of me, have gotten the best of me, but I'm really, really working on practicing self control. And so the
Mm.
situation will stay in the past. The
Okay.
lesson I will carry with me into the future.
I like that. I like that.
That's all I guess. That's what I'll say about when
Yeah.
my emotions got the best of me.
Yeah.
Uh, I can see some shirts that say half hood, half holy.
Right. Right.
Uh, I remain calm because I'm really crazy.
Right. Right. Right.
Those type things
Right.
come to mind. So I really try
Right.
to keep my emotions under control. Look, we're gonna close this up, but I was thinking when you mentioned Chris Brown,
Yeah.
that were a couple of situations on the runway on the red carpet, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like Gwyneth, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow, and somebody told her she was going to hell on the runway, and she kissed him and
Mm.
said, "You're going with me."
Right, right.
And
How
then there was a
how we handle
situation.
stuff.
Then when she walked off,
Mm-hmm.
when the lady she saw the sign, she walked off. She paused for a couple of steps. She slowly backtracked. She kissed the woman in the face, and she said, "You're going with me."
I love it. I love
I
it.
love it.
I love it.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And then
Mm-hmm.
there was the Denzel Washington situation.
Yes. Yes. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think the way that he handled it or, you know,
I think his emotions led him into his actions, but I do think that it wasn't, I don't think he went left. I don't think he went totally left. Now,
right.
someone that I think went totally left would be like maybe Will Smith when he got up and went on stage. Like that's like an
Mm-hmm.
extreme of 0 to 100. I think Will Smith may have gone 0 to 100. Denzel may have gone 0 to 70. And
Mm-hmm.
Gwyneth Paltrow, if that was her name, if that's the right address, she probably went 0 to 50, but her 50 was so classy.
Right.
Oh my!
Right. But do
And
you
that's a
also
lesson.
but do you also think that when you allow yourself, your emotions to be out of control, that it kind of is a trickle effect. Like once you start doing it, then that's always your go-to on how to handle stuff. And that's why it's important to get it under control. Because if that's all that you do every single time that, you don't like something someone said or someone did, and you go to that 100, I think it just becomes like a natural thing to do. So it can be a hard pattern to break as well.
But and I agree, and that's why it's so important to acknowledge it and to be aware of it, so that
Mm.
we can gain some type of control over it.
Mhm. Mhm. And the last part of it, you have to ask yourself, is it that serious? Is what I'm
It's,
getting so
yes,
upset, is it that serious? Is it life altering? You know,
right, right.
because I know there's definitely been situations that I've also looked back on and I'm like, it really wasn't that serious. Why did I get so upset? It's not
Hmm.
that serious. So that's the biggest question I would say. The takeaway is before you react on that emotion, is it that serious? And is it something that you can do like Gwyneth Paltrow did and make light of it? You know what I'm saying? Maybe make a joke of it and keep it moving. I love the way she handled that.
I do too. I do too. All right. So,
Mm.
in closing, I think we have had a very therapeutic time, a very therapeutic time today. And so, I think that if we keep in mind that when we are experiencing our emotions, if we will take a moment to be aware of the fact that emotions are going to spark, and I think if we acknowledge how we are feeling, and like you just said, if we understand that it is temporary, it will work out for the better for everyone who's involved. And you know what? Even if your emotions do get the best of you, acknowledge it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Acknowledge it. Confront it. And like we said last week, if it's a mistake that you've made or if it's a mistake that I've made because my emotions got so high, then I'm
Hmm.
going to be the first one to apologize.
Yes. Yes.
So be aware, acknowledge how you're feeling. And if things do go left, apologize and try to make it
Hmm.
right.
And here's another, I think, just method or something that you can do if you're getting or you're going at 0 to 100, and we're talking about numbers, right? Why not just count down? Give yourself 10, 10, 9, 8, 7. And if you're still feeling that way, maybe give yourself another 5 and see if you're able to bring yourself down a little bit. from that high emotion. So
Yes, yes, yes,
just a
yes,
tool.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I use that a lot with my teenagers at school because we
Mm-hmm.
play a lot and I encourage them to play. And sometimes the basketball games and the football games can get a little heated. And I'll call them out the game. Come on out, breathe for 10, sit out for a play, and then go back in.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand, sometimes I can just look at them and they know, okay, I need to reset. But it's good
Mm-hmm.
to have that check in, that emotional check in. This has been an
Right.
awesome show.
Agree. This has been really, really, really good. It's made me also think about, my own emotions and, making
Yes.
sure that I keep them in check. And more importantly, I think when we don't keep them in check, and I gave the example
Mhm.
of the kids, but it's also for the adults. The reason that we get so angry is because we're not, or we're choosing not to use our words to thoroughly express what we're actually feeling.
And you know
Instead,
what?
yeah.
Speaking of words, I want you to look at this wheel that I have real quick. I'm sorry. But this
Mhm.
degree of emotions, we can feel a certain way and it be okay if we can express how we're feeling. So right here on these degrees of
That's it.
emotions, even if you're angry, can you see right here in purple that on the
Okay.
lowest degree you may be angry, but if you can identify why you're angry, is it because you're jealous, is it
Mhm.
because you're displeased,
Mhm.
is it because you're offended or
Mhm.
disgusted, is it that you're furious or you're annoyed, and then ask
Mhm.
yourself, why are you annoyed?
Right.
Is it because you're just irritable right now? Did someone
Right.
do something to frustrate you?
Right.
Are you
And
feeling
what if
enraged?
it's no reason at all? Then you have to really self-reflect. Like if you're saying to yourself,
You
I don't know
really have to
why.
self-reflect.
Yes. Yes.
That whole remember
Yes.
that it's temporary. It's like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, I'm causing my blood pressure to go high on something that's not going to matter five
Mhm.
minutes from now.
Mhm. And if we can take a page out of the kids' book, and again, I'm referring to these little, 3 and 4 year olds, right? So in one
Mhm.
instant, their emotions, oh, they're upset with, their friend, and, they're not sharing or they're not playing fair. And the next
Mhm.
minute, they've already forgotten about it. They've already
Yes,
forgotten about how they were feeling. That's how
story.
temporary. And if we could do that same thing, hey, we might be better off.
All right, let's
Yeah.
think as kids as we go through this week.
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. You have a good week.
Thank
Thank
you,
you all
sis.
for joining us.
All right. We love you guys. We appreciate you, watching. And hopefully, again, as I say, we do this simply because, we want people to understand that they may not be the only person that's going through this. So we want to touch hearts, we want to touch minds, we want to touch souls. And we hope that just taking a little bit of time out of our day makes a difference.
Yes. Amen.
Okay.
You all have a good week. Bye bye.
All right.